Shiva Shalom Mishpacha. This is the Kohen speaking. Okay, so we continue this Shabbat, and I wanted to follow on from the message that I left a few days ago, if you remember, on Sadaqah, on tithing. I think it's very pertinent, and I need to give you this message so you can benefit and be blessed, and I'll give you a little bit more of the mechanics of how it works. Now, if you are earning, I'm going to give you an example today. I'm going to calculate it so you know exactly what we're talking about. If you are earning $1,000 a month, let's say, your tithes and sadaqah would be 1/5 of that, okay? So what is 1/5 of that? That's 20%. If you take 20% of that, 1,000 will be $200. So you're left with $800. Now, if you were, whatever you're making, bi-weekly, it will be 20%, or monthly, it will be 20%. Let's say that you are making $2,000 a month, and that 1/5 of that would be, which is 20%, is $400. Let's say that what you did, because you're being shy, because maybe you don't know, or maybe you don't understand properly, and you're making $2,000, but you only give $100. Some of you might be doing that. I'm just saying, maybe not to me, maybe to whoever you're giving, because if you're giving to somebody else, you might be. If you're giving to me, maybe you're doing that as well. So you're supposed to give your tithes for the card to your rabbi, to your to your kohen, and let's say if you're doing $100 out of 2,000, so you are basically technically $300 short. Okay. Now this principle is very important to understand. If you gave your $400 due regards, which is what God has asked you, if you gave $400, you will get back $400 times 4, $1,600 God will repay you with for that. And whatever that is in the year, God will work it out and God will repay it to you. And basically, it will be multiplied times 4 according to our understanding in our books. Now, what if you only gave 100? Would it be multiplied times 4? The answer is no. Why? Because you did not give enough. You actually kept $300 of it back. Therefore, God will deduct it. God will not bless you because you didn't give the right amount. So it's very important to understand that you've got to give the right amount. Now, I'm telling this to people who are working, employed, business people who are making a profit from their businesses. I'm talking to you who are employed people. I'm not talking to the person who is not employed. Now, what if you are not employed? What if you are not employed? What should you do? Let's say you're a student, and let's say you're not employed, and you only have, let's say for argument's sake, you only have $200 a month is what you get from your mom and dad. Maybe they give you some stipend, and you only have $200. But what you did, you took 1/5 of that, and you gave it to God as sadaqah. That's $40. So if you gave $40 of your $200 to God, and let's even wind it down to 100, and you gave $20 to God out of your 100, God will bless you times 4 of that. That means if you gave 20, then you'll get back $80. And you can multiply the 80 by the amount of giving you do. In other words, you multiply it by the 4, and that's the amount God will adjust you. Miraculously. It doesn't matter where God makes it from, He will adjust you miraculously, that He will repay you back times 4 of the amount that you've given. That is if you've given the right amount. But if you've been stealing from God, it's technically called stealing, because all the blessings that come from above are not because I did something right, or because I am great, or I'm special. No, it's not because of that. Yeah, you may be great, you may be special, but I'm just saying that it's not because of I did some magic. No, it's because God will reward you, and God pays you, and the blessings come from above because of who God is. So we always got to be thankful. So when we receive blessings, we're always thankful. When we give, we're always thankful. So remember that. That's the principle. You always got to be thankful. So to give you an example, if you give God $10,000 out of your income, God will reward you with 4 times that, $40,000 you'll get back in the year. I mean, I'm talking about the whole year now. Now, imagine if you gave in the whole year 10,000, God will give you 40,000 of that times 4. If you give 5,000, he'll give you 20,000. But what if you give 50,000? He will give you $200,000 back. That is a guarantee, by the way. This is not maybe and possibly yeah or no. No, this is guaranteed that God will give. This is written in our books that God will give you. God will multiply that and give you that amount back. Test it. Test God. Like I said in my previous lecture, test God and you will see. God doesn't normally permit us to test Him. But in this case, God tells us to test Him. And God will repay you back. So therefore, if you are not being blessed, then ask yourself the question, are you giving the right sadaqah? Are you giving the 10% sadaqah that is due if you are not working, and 10% tithes if you are working, and if you are a business person? If you are, then you will get that back. If you are not, then you won't get it back. This is how God works, by the way. So I want you all to understand, it's nothing to do with the temple, it's nothing to do with going back to Israel, it's nothing to do with before the temple or after the temple, it's always the same. Your teacher, your rabbi, your Kohen is always the one who gets it, and God blesses you in return. So I want you to work out what you give and what is times 4 of that, and you will get my point. Listen, I'll give you one example of one of my students. I won't give you everybody's example, only one of my students. When he came to America, when he was abroad in India, he probably didn't even earn $20,000 a month. Okay? He didn't earn $20,000 a month. And he knows it. He knows who I'm talking about. When he hears this, he'll know who I'm talking about. And, when he came to me and he didn't have a job, and I said, God's going to give you a job, and God gave him a job. Then afterwards, I said to him that God's going to take you abroad, and he came abroad. Now, he used to send, listen to this, he used to send $50 tithes from India. $50 tithes in sadaqah. Maybe that's what he was earning. Maybe that was at 20% of that. I don't know, I didn't ask him. But when he came to America, and he started his job, and he started probably with maybe $35,000, maybe $40,000 job in New York, and then he started to, I'm not exactly sure whether it was a $35,000 job or $40,000, but God multiplied his income at least 4 times, at least, because of what he was giving. And today he's on that income. In other words, now, the way he gives, if he gives according to his income, let's say, if he has a $100,000 income, and, because he'll give after he gets the money back from the taxpayer, and let's just say, for argument's sake, let's throw a ballpark figure. Let's say if the person gives $1,500 a month, times will multiply by 12, that's $18,000 a year. God will multiply that times 4. That will be $72,000 that is due back from God. In other words, God will fulfill that need, and God will make it up. Because God will make it up in profits, in business, in assets, in whatever, but God will make it up. That's definite. And I'm just giving you a rough example. So, what if you're a businessman, and this is where I said, this is a secret source of success. So you got to know the secret source of success to be successful. Whatever business you do, whatever employment you're in, give the money and you'll be blessed. Listen, I had a student who is no longer with me, and a lot of you knew him. And that man, I knew that man, when I first came to him, he was earning a lot less than what he left with. Okay? He left with a lot. He was probably on 50,000. Maybe slightly less when he was with us, and when he left, he was on more than $150,000 income. Okay, God blessed him, God multiplied him, and then he went and worshipped the golden calf, and that's the end of that. Okay, so my point is this: even in his case, God blessed him, and he had property. He had investments, and he got money from investment. God actually blessed him maybe 4, maybe 5 times the blessing, and he got properties for relationships he made. He got property in behalf of that, so he was tremendously blessed. But what does he do? He throws it all away and he goes and worships the golden calf. So if you want to go and worship the golden calf, sure, go ahead, do that. But those of you who are faithful, those of you who are sincere, stay put and test God with your sadaqah, with your tithing, and you will see. If you give 1/5 of your earnings, the money that you get in your hand, God will multiply it times 4 and you will get that back, whether it's through shares, whether it's through salary increases, whether it's through business expanding, God will reward you for that. I want you to test that. And I want you to report it back to me and tell me, and then I can come back to you and tell you yes or no, that what you did was exactly accurate or not. So be encouraged. Be encouraged that you will be tremendously blessed for what you do. It's not an empty endeavor. It's tremendous blessing in this. So here's another secret. The other secret that you didn't know is when you making a certain amount of money. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year, and you say to yourself, okay, I'm making $50,000 a year, and I'm going to give out of that 1/5, which is $10,000 for the year. Let's just say. So you decide you're going to give $10,000 for the year, and you're going to have $40,000 left over, and that $40,000, if you give $10,000, you expect to make $40,000. Okay? The increase that comes with the $10,000 is times 4. However, the problem is that you may not have worked it out properly, because what happens, if you're a student, you end up paying student fees, loans, stuff like that, rent, bills, other things, and you end up with nothing left. And instead of giving $10,000, you might be thinking, oh, well, I'll just give, $1,000 for the whole year. Like $100 or something, $120 or something a month. And you don't even give enough. Therefore, you're not blessed. And this is where the problem starts, is that you don't give the right amount, and therefore you're not going to be blessed. So how do you tackle that problem? How do you tackle the problem that you have to pay a loan back, bills, other things? The way you tackle it is you pledge to God. You pledge to God and you say, okay, I'm due to give you 1/5, $10,000 of my salary's money for the year. And then what you do is you pledge to God and say, I'm going to give 10,000, but I'm going to pledge that you're going to make me this coming year, not 50,000, but times 4. In other words, what's times 4 of what we just calculated? We said that it was 10,000 would give you 40,000, so you'll be pledging for 100,000 for a $90,000 job. So you pledge with God that you give me a $90,000 job at the end of the year, and I'm happy to give you the 10,000. And then when I get the $90,000 job, when you're on the $90,000 job or a $100,000 job, you say to God, okay, I'm on the $100,000 job, and I'm pledging this year to give you the 20% or the 1/5, which then becomes $20,000, okay, for the year. So you give God $20,000 for the year, but you pledge with God because you're going to get back times 4, 80,000. So you pledge with God that you're going to give me a job with a $180,000 salary next year. That's how you pledge with God, $180,000 income to give 80,000, and that's how God builds you. And God takes that. It's not like God takes that challenge. God takes it and God says, okay, you pledge with me $20,000 out of your salary, and I pledge with you to give you a $180,000 salary by the end of the year, and God will make it happen. This is how you need to pledge with Him. Maybe you go with not 180, maybe you go with $200,000 salary, and God will do it. Because you're faithful. You're faithful and you're sincere with God, and you did not shy to ask God to say, hey, I'm due to give you $20,000 tithing and sadaqah. Yes, I will do it, but I also pledge that you give me in return a $200,000 job, and God will give you that job. That is the way you do it. That is the secret source to success. And I doubt many of you even applied that in your lives. And you need to apply it, and you need to do it, and you will see the rewards for that. And stop worshipping the golden calf. Stop going the way of the, miscreant students who decided after their blessings to go worship the golden calf. Don't do that. Stick with God, stick with His promises, and you will never go wrong. So in this secret formula, this is how you do the pledging. I'll give you a little example so you know how to do it for next year, because we are very close to end of the Gregorian calendar and New Year starts in 2023. So this is how you do it. You put yourself in a position and you know how much you're making a year right now, or how much you're going to make till end of December. So what you do, let's say for argument's sake, let's just say that your total income this year is, I'm just going to work on a premise, $50,000. Let's say your income is $50,000, and let's say you've done 20% of that, and if you have done 20% of that, which is 1/5, $10,000, and let's say if it was less than that, let's say if your income was, let's say your income is $30,000, okay, and let's just even lower that right here. $20,000 is your income, and let's say you haven't been paying properly, and I know many of you haven't been paying properly. I know that, so I don't need to tell you. So those of you not been paying properly your tithe and sadaqah, that's why you're not been benefiting. So how do you benefit? See, for $20,000, if you were earning $20,000 annually, you should have been giving at least $4,000 for the year. And that would be, if you divide that into 12 checks, that would be $333.33 a month. And if you divided it into, let's say, 52 checks, 52 checks means 52 weeks, or let's just do biannual, let's just say 26. So with 26, you should have been giving $153.84 every 2 weeks, every bi-weekly. Now, if you didn't do that, you didn't benefit. If you gave less, you did not benefit. Now, how do we benefit? How do we make the next year right? Now, we are going to put God to the test, because God says, test me. Test me with your tithes and sadaqah. So you're going to test God, and what you do is you pledge to God that next year, and you're going to make it so you do a little bit more. Make it a little bit harder for yourself. It's can't be just easy. It'll be a little bit harder. Let's say that if all you did was, let's say you gave $100 a month. Let's just say $100 a month or $200 a month. Let's make it $200 a month. So if you were giving $200 a month, and whatever that works out to you for your salary, let's say you say to God that next year I'm going to give you every bi-weekly or every month, you up the amount by, let's say, 5%. So if you up the amount, and by the way, the 5% is not on your monthly. 5% amount is on your yearly salary. So if on your yearly salary or whatever income you're deriving, if you said, I'm going to give 5% extra on my income bi-weekly or bi-monthly, however you're doing it, and you say to God that I'm going to give 5% extra, yes, it's a little bit more challenging. It's going to be a little bit challenging. You say to God, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for me, but I'm going to give 5% more every 2 weeks or every 4 weeks, however you're doing it. And then you say to God that at the end of the year, you're pledging to God and you're saying that God is going to increase you times 5 of that. In other words, if you were on 50,000 income, and $50,000 income, and you can convert it into pounds and euros as well, and if you're on that and you're giving 20%, and 20% of that is $10,000 divided by the 12, it's $833 a month, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you didn't do that. If a lot of you didn't do that, and you're not been tithing properly your actual amounts, that is why you're not being properly being blessed by God. So now that if you decide that, okay, Abba, the Lord of the universe, Master of the universe, I'm going to give you 25% of my tithes and sadaqah, and I'm going to do it. I know it's a little difficult for me, but I'm going to do it. But at the end of it, you want to pledge to God that you want God to bless you with 5 times what you give. So if your amount that you gave, and I'm going to throw in rough figures, let's say if you at 50,000 income, and you started to give God 25% because you went up 5% more than what you did previously, or maybe you didn't do it right, maybe you never gave God enough, and now you're going to give God the right amount, and you're challenging God, you're putting God to the test, and you're saying that, Master of the universe, Abba in the Shema'im, in the heavens, this time I'm giving 25%, and I want you to bless me 5-fold. I want you to bless me 5-fold at the end of the year. So that 5-fold blessing if for $50,000, if it was $10,000 was your tithes and sadaqah, let's say if you started to do 25%, which is 5% extra, and now you're giving $12,500 for the year, then you say to God you want to be blessed times 5 that amount. You can write it down. You need to write this down, by the way. You need to write this down so you have a record of what God needs to do for you. You write it down and you keep it as a record and date it. And so 5 times the amount against $12,500 against a imaginary figure of $50,000 is $62,500. In other words, that your salary, your business should increase by $62,500. So if you were on $50,000, you should be getting back from God $112,500. And this is my challenge to you, that God will do this for you. It is my challenge. I challenge you to try it, put God to the test, and you will get this reward back. And you will learn the real principle, the real source of success, and how to be successful by giving with an open heart and by maintaining a close relationship with God, so that God and you are in close relationship, so God knows exactly what to give you back. And you will receive it. Whether you receive, like I said, whether you receive shares, whether you receive properties, whether you get inheritance, whatever, God will reward you back with the exact amount that you pledged to God. Maybe more than that, actually. Maybe more than that. So, bear with me. Listen to this lecture again to make sure that you understand the principles of tithing and sadaqah, because that is which leads to all roads of success. All roads of success lead to this. I know a Muslim family in Pakistan. I want to give you an example of this. Listen very carefully. A Muslim family who's doing sadaqah and tithing, you know what they do? They send out 20 food parcels of a certain amount to 20 families. And that is their tithes and sadaqah, I guess. And I was told by the family member who I'm in touch with, they told me, they said, we do not give to every beggar out there. We don't give money to beggars who are walking around the street, but we make 20 parcels of food that, staples, like, lentils, rice, flour, milk, and other things. So they make 20 parcels and they send their driver out, and the driver takes it and delivers it to 20 chosen families that they have handpicked, that are poor, that are needy, and they send the money out to them in parcels of food. And that family, listen, that family got tremendous blessing. I was told by the family member, this is something I don't put out public normally, but I'll put it out just to show you the power of the Torah's blessing. That family's head is about to go to make a deal. And then the figure I was told, by the way, this is Pakistan, right? Country in the East. And this is a big amount for even Pakistan. And the figure that I was given was that he's about to make a deal, and she wanted me to accompany her dad with this deal, just to go with him, maybe for safety's sake, maybe for blessing. I'm not exactly sure. But I was asked to accompany the father with this deal, and the deal is $5 million. Listen, $5 million is not a small amount. You maybe heard it in movies and places like that. I heard it in real life. So this deal is coming, in which the guy is blessed tremendously, and I'm supposed to, accompany him to this deal wherever they want to go in the city, and to be, I guess, I think that this family member feels that, a father, she doesn't want him to go alone, he'll be safe if I go with him, etc., etc. And, there's a blessing in that. So, it's okay, I'm happy to do that. My point is this, right? My point is this, that God is blessing them tremendously as a result of what they are doing. And so therefore I'm asking you are supposed to be obeying God's law. You are in Torah, and if you're not doing the right thing, then I think you really need to introspect, look at yourself and ask yourself, why am I not doing that? Why am I not being blessed? Is maybe because I'm doing something wrong. And you need to revert, you need to change, and you need to start behaving. Because when you start to behave and you start to trust God, God will bless you. Your affirmations, if you're writing an affirmation for $100 million, yet you refuse to give God the zakah that is due to Him and the tithe. How can you get the $100 million? I won't name names. When you get a bill and it's something that you're not expecting and it comes out of the blue and you get this, and many people, not just some people, many people, what they do, they throw a fit. They throw this extreme reaction that they're like so angry. Maybe it's a parking ticket, maybe it's something else, and it's out of the blue, and you weren't expecting it, and suddenly it turns up at your door, and you're like, what the heck, why should I pay this bill? And you're very angry. That's a reaction. It's a negative reaction. You must never, ever have a negative reaction on a bill or a payment. Treat the bill just like you treat a check that you receive or money that you receive in your bank. Just the same way. When you get a bill, turn it around. Be thankful. Thank God. Assume that the bill is actually a recipient of a payment, not a bill. But treat it like you're receiving a payment in your bank, and say to yourself, I thank you, God, that I'm able to dispense my money and pay this due. Pay this due bill, and you just put it down, and in your imagination or in your mind, you give thanks a few times. Thank you, Abba, that you take care of me. Thank you, Abba, that I always have surplus of money. Thank you, Abba, that I've always surplus of money to take care of anything that comes my way. Thank you. And you just pay the bill. That's it. Do not react to it. Do not judge it. Do not react. Do not say, why the hell me? Well, who said this to me? Well, I didn't do this. Don't jump around all over the place, because when you do that, when you judge something, you will create resistance. You will create blocks. You will create these resistances and blocks which will prevent you from your blessing. They will stop your blessing in its track. You will not get blessing coming your way. If a blessing was coming your way, and your behavior, your intense behavior of this kind of judgment will, boom, it'll just put a stop to it. And you'll be like wondering what happened. What happened to my payment? What happened to that money that I was supposed to be receiving? And suddenly something happened, it got blocked. They did something and it's delayed. You're going to get all of that. So whatever you do, money is energy. And I come to a statement that Jesus made in the New Testament. He said, do not judge. And that is what he was talking about. Do not judge, but then he said, judge righteously. In other words, judge every statement, every incident in your life with a righteous attitude of good, never of indifference or bad. Be neutral. Try to be as neutral as possible. When you judge a situation, you judge it righteously and you judge it fairly, but you never judge it because you're technically judging yourself. When you're judging yourself, you lose out. Nobody else loses out, but you lose out. So don't allow that to happen. Don't allow yourself to lose out. Always remember that. Don't treat bills like, oh my goodness, it's death sentence. Don't treat it like a death sentence. And don't expect me to be miserable with you and to console you in your misery and to become miserable with you. No, be happy. When you pay a bill, be happy about it. When you spend money, remember what I told you, give thanks. Give thanks to the money that you have so that God will reward you with more money. When you pay with happiness and God will reward you with more. Money is energy. And when you spend the energy with happiness, that energy will return back to you. And if you're being miserable and whingy about it, then God will take away that which you already have. This is where Jesus of Nazareth, he said in the script, in the scriptures that Christians read, he said that those that have less, that will also be taken away from them. Those that have more will be given them. And people are like, what the heck? What's Jesus talking about? What's he saying? That he's going to take away even the less that we have, and he's going to give more to the rich? What kind of nonsense is that? People are complaining about Jesus' statement that those that have less will be taken away. Jesus was setting a principle of Torah. When you do not tithe, do not give sadaqah properly, and you whinge and whine and you hold on to it, God will take that away from you, so that you can whinge and whine more. Because the more you whinge, the more will turn and come around to you. The more negative energy you spread, the more negative energy will come around to you. So that which you have will be taken away from you. Maybe a loss in business, maybe you lost somewhere else, and you will lose that. But if you've been faithful, and you've been diligent, and you've been happy to give, and you also, in the mode that I'm asking you to be in, then God will reward you. God will send you money. Maybe God will make you more money in business, more shares, more cryptocurrency. Your cryptocurrency does well. You get more in business. You're able to buy a car. You're able to purchase a home. Why? Because you've been faithful and you've been diligent. So for your faithfulness, for your diligence, God will repay you. God will repay you, reward you for that. So remember, this is why I wanted to make this lecture about tithing and sadaqah, that you need to learn the principles of God. The principles of God, the principles of blessing, the principles of success. Once you learn these, you will never go wrong. So with that, I'm not gonna read lines of scripture to tickle your ears, because I've done that plenty of times, where I've read lines of scripture and half of you didn't even know what the heck I'm talking about. So therefore, learn the principles of success. It is in our Torah, it is in our holy books, it is countless times repeated over. So give where is due to be given. Do your tithes and sadaqah. Pledge the 20% to God and write it down, write a date, and ask God what you want in return. You want times 4, which you should get. You want times 5. Write it down what that times 5 is, or what you're giving, and then God will return it to you. Now, another thing that I want to explain and ask is that the way things work, the way people get blessed, this is a relationship between the teacher and the student. This relationship is what blesses the student and his family, and the two have to work together. So in this case, myself and my student, the way I would work it is that I set a goal, I set a pledge in front of my student, and I say that you have to send in X amount of money a month, and this is what you pledge with God. And when the student pledges it, then God meets that amount and more. This is what happens. So if those of you who want to work with me on that, by all means, fire back, write to me, to my email address, shimon63@yahoo.com, SHIMOUN63@yahoo.com, and I can work with you on that. And I can specify the amount that God will bless you this coming year, and the amount that you should be giving to God from your increases. So to give you an example of how this works, and I want to give you an example where you could actually understand, is that let's say that I said to my student that you're going to give $2,000, you're going to pledge $25,000, let's say $24,000 a year. So I say to a student, you're going to pledge $24,000 a year, and God is going to meet that pledge. In other words, that's 20% of your increase, and God is going to meet the 80% of your increase. In other words, in order for you to do the 24,000, God will meet you all the way to make up the money that you need to pay this. So that is 20% of the 100% amount that you will take out. So when we say that, then God has to meet your income. Your income for the year has to demonstrate that. And by the way, this is nothing new. This is the law in the Torah, that when we ask a student and the student pledges an amount, then that is the amount that God will not only meet, but God also exceeds that amount for the student. And this is how the students get blessed. And this is how our people, they get into businesses, they get into high-paying jobs, because they have done the due diligence for what God has required. A lot of you have not done your due diligence. You have been petty poor, and some of you have not even met up to the level that God requires you to come up to. This is why you're still struggling. This is why you're still shaking your head and what's going on. It's because you are not in the right mindset. You got to change your mind. You got to step in faith on board, and that is when God comes out and meets you. God tells us that test me. And that's the only time that God asks us to test Him. God doesn't expect us normally. Normally, we do not go to God and say, I want to test you, because we're not permitted to do that under the law. But in this particular circumstances, God actually tells us Himself to test me, and I will send you an increase. So therefore, this is why I said, those of you who want to be part of this group, to be blessed this coming year, then write back to me and we can work something out between ourselves. Therefore, that will allow you to be blessed tremendously in the coming year. Okay? And I say it with a guarantee that God will return it to you. With that, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom to you, and Shalom Shalom to you.